Hello and welcome to this IFOS webinar with Toby Steiner, Chief Operations Officer of Thoth Open Metadata, and we'll talk today about this open metadata and dissemination platform for open access books. Over to you, Toby.
Thanks so much, Irina, and thank you for the invitation to present at today's IFL webinar. I really appreciate the opportunity to be talking a bit more about what we've been doing with Thoth Open Metadata for the last couple of years, and also future plans for that, and how Thoth Open Metadata really is being built and has been built around really supporting small and to medium-sized publishers across the globe. So let me just maybe dive into things here. Maybe first things first, what actually is Thoth? So Thoth is a small non-profit community interest company registered in the UK. And over the last couple of months and years, we've been able to establish a number of open solutions tailored to small and medium-sized book publishers to disseminate open access content openly, globally, and effectively. And that is through both traditional supply chains, but also to think more about emerging roads that are being developed by the community. We really have our ears on the ground around what emerging infrastructures are being established, and are seeking to work with them, as well as with the very established ecosystem of in the book supply chain. Thoth Open Metadata itself is, as I mentioned, a small community interest company, but this has been growing out of a project that we've been running for a couple of years now, which has been or is the COPIM project. COPIM is short for Community-Led Open Publication Infrastructures for Monographs. And in its first iteration, this had been running for 3.5 years, so between 2019 and 2023. And we are now in the next phase of that project with COPIM Open Book Futures. Both of those project phases are being funded by Arcadia and Research England, so UKRI in the UK. But we are really a kind of international project and community working together to make open access book publishing more equitable and sustainable, particularly for small and scholarly publishers. And in that context, one of the work packages of the initial COPIM project was looking at how we could actually be building an open dissemination system to make the tedious task, especially for small publishers, to come to grips with how do I create my metadata to the variety of standards that are out there for book publishing. How do I get workflows in place to easily register DOIs, for example, for my books and for my chapters, etc., etc. So all these questions around metadata and dissemination, we've dedicated a whole work package to that, and out of that, we then established the spin-off of Thoth, which now is Thoth Open Metadata. So this is really to emphasize that this open dissemination system that we are now calling Thoth Open Metadata has been developed by small publishers and is tailored towards small and medium-sized publishers. Thoth is a membership organization, and the four founding members of Thoth are the Scholar-Led Collective, the Open Book Collective, and two small publishers, Punctum Books from the United States and Open Book Publishers from the UK. So this is also to reflect really our rootedness within this community of small to medium-sized OA publishers. And in the context of that project work, we've also published an expansive scoping report that had been updated a year after its first publication to include more details, as we've learned a lot about the book supply chain ecosystem. This report really looked into the different aspects of how to get one's open access books into a supply chain that is still primarily built around closed access books and commercial book publishing. And so we were really trying to pull at the different threads of how can we make open access books appear, for example, in the large aggregators such as Google Books, for example, such as Web of Science, EBSCOhost, etc. So all those larger platforms, and also the specificities that each of those platforms bring to the table, because every one of those platforms works in kind of slightly different ways and individual ways, and all of that we try to disentangle and come to grips with really, and all of that has then been distilled into the development phase of Toad Open Metadata. And that brings me to the next question: what does Toad actually do? So at the core of Toad really is what we call Toad Free, which is a powerful platform that publishers can use to manage and enrich metadata. This is tailored towards books and chapters, and it has been primarily designed for open access content, but also allows non-open access content, because we appreciate that there are many publishers out there that come like from a closed context of sorts. So any hybrid publishing activities, so a publisher really focusing on predominantly on closed access books, but dipping their toes into open access book publishing. We also wanted to enable them to use that open metadata approach, and hopefully then to transition over to a more open access amenable model over time. So on the one hand, we have this platform where publishers can create and input metadata, manage metadata, and enrich metadata to include, for example, a number of persistent identifiers, for example. So DOIs are integrated in that platform. We also have like the open science related PIDs such as ROR and ORCID integrated in the Toad metadata schema, and are also supporting controlled subject vocabularies such as the thema or BISTAG classification codes, and are also looking to expand that group of controlled vocabularies integration in the next couple of months and years. So this is really on the input side of the metadata, but the massive benefit that we see in the Toad platform is really that once the data has been created within that platform, we now have a variety of powerful export routines in place that directly export fully open metadata into the variety of formats that publishers need to disseminate their metadata works. So on that screenshot here on the slide, you see, for example, there's different flavors of Onyx 3.0 outputs that are tailored, for example, to Project Muse, to OAPN and the Directive Open Access books, to JSTOR. Also other flavors such as Onyx 2.1. We also have MARC creation integrated in that, in those workflows. So MARC 21 records, MARC 21 XML records are being generated through that. And we are also able to directly export Crossref DOI XML records that publishers can then use to directly send on to Crossref for registering of their content. The other aspect of Toad Free really is that we have integrated two open APIs that publishers and infrastructures can draw upon. So this is really to make that CC0 dedicated public domain metadata accessible more prominently. One use case of that API usage is, for example, the Open Book Collective that I'll be coming back to a bit later. But those open APIs also allow like integrations with other open systems out there. So for example, at the moment we have, or just a couple of weeks ago, we've released a plugin that links PKP's Open Monographs Press to Toad, so that any kind of press that is using OMP to publish their books can install the plugin and then neatly use the integration to send OMP's basic metadata into Toad, and within Toad, this metadata can then be enriched to the variety of specifications that publishers need to disseminate their books later on. So if you wanted, if a publisher wanted to register their OMP books, for example, with Project Muse or JSTOR or any other platform, they could easily do that through the Toad platform and this OMP integration. So this is really at the core of what Toad is doing, the Toad Free platform. But on top of that, we've built a couple of services, paid for services that we hope will be useful for publishers going forward. The first group of services is labeled Toad Plus, and this is really a variety of services that enable publishers to make use of Toad's capabilities to disseminate widely to established services for metadata and open access content. So this includes dissemination to the Directory of Open Access Books and OAPEN, could include JSTOR, Project Muse, Google Books, EBSCOhost, ProQuest eBook Central, Clarivate Ex Libris, and Web of Science. That is the Web of Science Book Citation Index with JISC NBK in the UK, but also, a number of other platforms that we are looking into at the moment, for example, Apple Books. Within Toad Plus, we also have integrated a DOI registration facility because on the one hand, on the technical level, within Toad, you can directly leverage automatic workflows that send data into Crossref if you are a Toad Plus subscriber. So you would just enter your DOI with in the Toad interface, and then this then gets automatically sent out to Crossref and is being registered. And I come back to the Crossref aspect in a minute, because there's more around that that might be useful for publishers to know. But let me first quickly mention those other bits here as well. So another component within the Toad Plus offer is that we are able to provide transparent archiving solutions within what we call Toad Open Archiving Network. So this would be disseminating your books to the Internet Archive, Zenodo, and the library repository network that we are establishing in the context of COPIM Open Book Futures. So this is basically an alternative to the larger established preservation solutions such as Clocks and Portico. We thought this might be necessary to implement such an alternative because there has been some notes around really the transparency of that whole preservation process. So we know that clocks and Portico take care of like the preservation type of component. But with the Toad Open Archiving Network, this would really be a transparent archiving solution where you can really look into the different steps of archiving and then really trace back each of the archiving steps to make sure that your books are actually being preserved in this kind of context. And on top of those other services, we also have a couple of bespoke metadata services established. So these include, for example, the ingest of a bulk back catalog that a publisher might be bringing to come on board to Toad. We have services to help publishers with the manual metadata creation. So a publisher could be sending us their PDF or EPUB file of their book, and we would then create a rich metadata set working with that as the basis. And we can also provide bespoke dissemination to additional platforms of choice. Coming back to the question of to the aspect of Crossref DOI registration, in the context of our work, we've been able to establish a number of umbrella agreements with like-minded organizations, and Crossref is being one of those. So we've been able to sign up to Crossref as a sponsor and are offering basically an umbrella agreement where publishers coming onto Crossref or seeking membership of Crossref through the Thoth sponsorship, or members that have an existing Crossref membership that want to move their membership under the Toad umbrella, we would be able to provide those publishers with the added benefit of no annual membership fees that would be being charged by Crossref. Also, Toad would be covering the DOI registration fees of each publisher, and there's also the automated DOI registration workflow available via Toad, via the Toad interface that makes really the whole business of creating DOIs and registering DOIs with Crossref as easy as possible, really. Also, speaking of umbrella agreements, we've also been able to establish agreements with other open initiatives such as Awapen and the Directory of Open Access Books. So with Awapen, for example, we have a strategic partnership in place, which means that publishers using Thoth to being listed in Awapen and the DOAB will benefit from no annual membership fees that being charged by Awapen and no per book servicing fees. And we also have an easy title registration workflow that's available directly through Toad. And it would be as part of the Toad Plus program. Similarly, with JSTOR, we have been able to establish a full book submission fee waiver together with JSTOR as part of their open access program. And with Project Muse, we've been able to negotiate a 50% discount on the per book submission fees, which which Project Muse normally charges at $100 per title. And so going through Toad, you would be saving 50% of that submission fee, and Toad would be taking care of the management of that payment onto Project Muse. Also to mention that Toad is part of the DOAB Trusted Platform Networks. So open access titles that are eligible to be included in DOAB will then automatically be indexed in DOAB as part of the Open submission, which again makes it easier for publishers to register their content in those platforms. Another group of services that we've just more recently been able to establish are what we call Toad hosting. one of those components of Toad hosting is dedicated file hosting that we are able to implement under the publisher's own web domain. And we would be providing that for free for any kind of publisher coming on board to using Toad. This would really be to support publishers with having the files hosted at a central location, and at the technical level, this would also be leveraging a powerful content delivery network based on the Amazon AWS infrastructure to ensure speedy delivery of books across the globe. And this is really to, again, support publishers with making their content accessible as easily as possible. Next to that, we have been able to establish a white label publisher website approach. So this is basically a modular website template that can be reused by any publisher interested in using it. This also has an integration of the Toad catalog function. So if you wanted to have a look at the extended book catalog that Toad is able to provide, have a look at toad.pub/books. And this kind of catalog can then also be implemented in this white label publisher website approach. We really want to strengthen publishers' independence and not tie them into any kind of agreement that would basically tie them into a kind of walled garden or a third-party platform of sorts. And we want to stress that we really want to implement that if publishers are interested, under the publishers or group's own domain, so that publishers remain in control of what they are hosting there. It would really just be underneath that domain layer that the hosting would be provided in a performant and up-to-date fashion, really. Together with the white label publisher website hosting offer, we could also include a book level usage data display that is utilizing the Opera's metric service. This is what you see down here at the bottom right. This is a widget that had been originally developed by open book publishers and is basically available for everybody to reuse. And this would be available to be implemented as part of this white label website approach. Speaking of usage statistics, we are also seeking to provide privacy-respecting usage statistics. This would be building on the file hosting that I mentioned earlier, because that file hosting then would enable us to collect usage data of those files on behalf of the publisher. And this would be done via the open source tool Matomo, which is then being configured to be privacy respecting, GDPR compliant, and so not really just collecting like the most necessary data and not any kind of personal information that would be collected by other services such as Google Analytics. We are also seeking to increase the number of platforms that will be feeding into that usage statistics generation. So at the moment, we are able to display Awapen, Google Books, and the publisher's own website usage data. Additional sources such as JSTOR, Project Muse, and other platforms that provide usage statistics will be sought to be implemented within that kind of usage statistic provision going forward. And as a fourth component of the Toad hosting offer, we are also able to provide like internal infrastructure for publishers. So we would be offering hosting of open source tools for publishers' communications and product management needs. For example, Mattermost, which is an open source alternative to Slack. the open source Nextcloud and OnlyOffice to replace Google Drive and Microsoft Office 365. And in the near future, we hope to be able to also offer hosting of PKP's Open Monographs Press. And I will be coming back to that to Open Monographs Press in a minute. Regarding services for libraries, I think we believe the things that Thoth is doing are also very useful for libraries, because on the one hand we are opening up the metadata for library reuse, specifically by providing open and CC0 public domain MARC records and other formats such as KBART that are also being used by libraries. We are facilitating access to that wider ecosystem of the established book supply chain for small and scholarly publishers that usually have struggled to participate in this kind of ecosystem because they just don't have the knowledge and the resources to invest in this more prominently. We are also helping with the integration with the open publishing systems, such as Open Monographs Press. But we're also talking, for example, to Janeway, which is hosted at the Open Library of Humanities, and are also seeking to extend this to other open publishing systems, really. And the benefit for libraries as well as the larger public, we believe, is really that we strongly seek to support publishers from non-Western context to really foster the aspect of bibliodiversity and participation in that larger book ecosystem for publishers across the globe, really. This is just here a couple of examples to highlight how Thoth's open metadata, open data is already powering open infrastructures. So, for example, the Open Book Collective is using Thoth's data to create their own shared catalog. So all the publishers that are represented at the via the Open Book Collective have their titles in Thoth, in the Thoth database, and that is then being displayed on the collective catalog of the Open Book Collective. In a similar fashion, the Scholar-led collective has implemented a shared catalog that's using Thoth's live metadata feed via Thoth's API. So this is really a shared catalog that pulls together the 5 presses that are part of the Scholar Collective into a joint catalog. And just very recently, we've been able to establish a catalog solution for NUPs.nl, which is a consortium of 6 Dutch university presses, so from the Netherlands. And we're working with them to currently develop a joint catalog proof of concept, which is built using Thoth's rich live book and chapter metadata. Maybe to provide a quick overview of the next steps of what we are currently working on and will be working on. So in the context of the project I mentioned earlier, Copium Open Book Futures, Thoth is one of the key stakeholders in the project, and as part of that project work, we will be seeking to really foster multilingualism by extending Thoth's interface to a multilingual version. At the moment, the interface is based on the English language, but we are seeking to extend that to a variety of other languages. And we'll also then be seeking to provide the documentation in other languages so that publishers from across the world can more easily and readily use the interface. This also ties into the internationalization component that we want to build upon. This is really inviting publishers from a more diverse set of regional backgrounds. This is work in progress, and On top of that, we are also seeking to develop a number of additional services. And as you can see in the list here, many of those have now already been implemented since we are already in the second half of the project. There's still a bit of work to do, but in principle, all of these aspects have been implemented. So as I mentioned, the DOI menting with Crossref, for example, is fully functional and is established as a seamless workflow. We are also able to implement Crossref additional services such as Crossmark. This has been integrated in the metadata scheme. I've mentioned the publisher website and catalog hosting, which is now functional. The provision of open usage metrics is a work in progress at the moment. And the registration of references that publishers might want to seek to register, for example, with Crossref, that's also possible through Thoth. So yeah, if you were to submit a list of references to Crossref, that could also be done via the Thoth interface. Also, specifically mentioning here our work with the archiving and accessibility work packages that are part of Copium Open Book Futures. We're working with those work packages to explore issues, for example, of link rot and how to address these. So link rot being the issue that over time web links tend to stop functioning, and we want to implement a mechanism there to provide a timestamp, basically a snapshot of the website that the link has been pointing to at the time of publication. We're also looking at a variety of other challenges to archiving that particularly small publishers are facing. We are seeking to look into legal deposit workflows and also supporting publishers with aspects of meeting accessibility standards, which is something, especially in the European context, where I think mid next year there is legislation coming in place that will mandate certain certain aspects of accessibility within the metadata creation. So we will also be looking at that. And this maybe is a bit of an kind of high-level overview of how we hope to expand towards services over time together with publishers and other infrastructures. So we see this really as a component in a larger open data ecosystem that is emerging. And specifically for books, we believe Thoth can be playing quite an important role in that. So as you can see, there's different aspects to that. For example, ISBN registration workflows, DOI registration that is already in place. I've been mentioning the legal deposit component that we will be looking into. On the right-hand side, the hosting services, the usage data, and integration with other systems, that is still work in progress. But also, disseminating open data to those variety of metadata and content platforms, and tackle the aspect of archiving of open access books, so that those valuable contributions to the scholarly record aren't being lost in case a publisher should cease to exist or stop operations. This is just to mention a number of like-minded infrastructures that we are already collaborating with. There's really quite a diverse set of infrastructures. And this is just to highlight that we are now working with close to 50 presses, and more than 30 of those 50 presses are already actively using Thoth. And as you can see, there's really a widespread of international presses from Latin America, from Africa, from the US, from UK, from Europe, represented here. And we, of course, would like to increase the number of publishers that are really seeking to move their metadata creation towards a more open approach and to open up the metadata records themselves. So if you wanted to know more about what Code could do for you, or you happen to know a publisher that might be interested in what we are doing, please spread the word and do get in touch with us via info@code.pub. We also have a dedicated survey in place at the moment that is polling for publishers' preferences. So if you're a publisher interested in maybe learning more about the different aspects of dissemination and archiving and are just beginning to think about these aspects, I would invite you to have a look at that survey, because that survey really raises a couple of key points that we've been able to pull out through the research that we've been doing in the first phase of COPIM. And it can really serve as a kind of a conversation starter. So for publishers to think more closely around, for example, which kind of platforms they wanted to disseminate their data to, which kind of metadata standards they are using or would love to be using, currently can't. And so this survey is accessible via this QR code, of course, or via the tiny.cc Thoth-publishers-survey URL. And that brings me to an end, I think, for that presentation. Thanks so much for listening to me waffling about, what we do at Thoth. I hope it hasn't been too cumbersome and yet too technical, but that was really just an overview of what we've been working on over the last couple of months and years. So, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Toby. That was very comprehensive and very useful. Now it's time for questions. So colleagues, please write them in the Q&A or in the chat. And maybe while you are writing your questions, and by the way, you can also raise your hand and I'll let you speak if you want to, if you'd rather speak than write. But while you are writing or thinking about your questions, I have a couple. So my first question is, if I'm a university press or a library publishing, say, 3 open access books a year, 10 closed access books, and if I want to use Thoth, what would be the best workflow? Send an email to info@thoth.pub, describe what I would like Thoth to do for me, and then you'll follow up, right? Or what's the best workflow?
So that's a great question, actually. I think initially it'd be good for a publisher to get signed up to the free Thoth platform. So really publishers can use the platform themselves to create metadata, and to sign up for an account for the platform, you would need to currently send us just an email to info@thoth.pub with like the key details around the name, the official name of your publisher, how you would like to the publisher's name to appear in the metadata. This can also be in different linguistic variations if you wanted to include that. And then really just the details of the main points of contact at your publisher's end. And we would then be creating that account for you, and you would have a dedicated publisher account on Thoth, and could then start either by creating your metadata yourself within the Thoth interface, or you could ask us if we could help with, for example, ingesting a back catalog of Thoth if you happen to have that. Like say you've already published 100 books over the last couple of years and would like those books to appear in the Thoth database, we could be looking into that. For full transparency, I need to mention that some of that might be needing a bit of development work from our end to be able to ingest that data that you will be providing into the standardized kind of code format really that we would need in the database. But we are also working on a more streamlined ingest kind of workflow where publishers can really action them themselves. It's just that at the moment we don't have that in place, so we would need to have a conversation between the publisher and ourselves to see how we can bring that data on board. But going forward, if you're publishing new books, you could be directly using the Thoth interface to create the metadata records. And from then on, once the metadata is available in Thoth, we could be providing the Thoth Plus services. So if you wanted us to take on the task of disseminating that work, that book into those variety of platforms, we would need to establish a kind of statement of work where we really nail down the different components of that agreement, because like many publishers don't need all of those platforms to be for their works to be disseminated to. But we can work with you around that. And once that has been agreed, you would then in the future just be sending new books to us, and we would then be taking care of the dissemination work on behalf of the publisher. So it would really help streamline and make it more easy for the publisher to not have to think about each of those platforms individually. But we would be taking care of that for you.
Thanks a lot. My next question is, if, for example, I am a Ministry of Science and Research, and I'm thinking about a national portal that would showcase open access books published in my country, then I can ask publishers to register with Thoth. I can use Thoth API and include that in my research portal or open science portal, right? And that would be fully free, right? If they use free source. Excellent.
That's the beauty of open data, really, that you can just reuse it in any kind of other context. There's no limitations to that.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Because I know that many of us publish books in national languages, and it's great to have international visibility, but it's also important to have national visibility. And it's wonderful that you're offering this service. Thank you so much. Any other questions, colleagues? I think we can still use some time for questions if there are any.
Irina, maybe if I can just add to this kind of the national catalog kind of approach, that's been really the motivation behind the Dutch university publishers coming together to form that consortium of really 6 publishers that are covering quite a lot of the publications in the Netherlands. And they want to create a kind of shared catalog to have like a public-facing window to showcase all of the books that they collectively have been creating. And so that's really something that we believe other collectives might also be interested in. And we've already heard, for example, from the Irish Open Access Publisher group of or association, I think it is, that would also be interested in a similar approach. And in different other national contexts, I think that's also something that either we might be able to provide your services for, or you could just be using the open metadata and feed that into any kind of other system on national level, be that at a ministry or any kind of other provider that's existing out there.
Thank you so much. I don't see any other questions. Well, thanks again for joining today and for sharing your wonderful work, Toby. And thanks a lot, colleague, for joining and listening. And I hope you'll get in touch with Toby and make use of this excellent service, and very much needed, because we hear that our publishers are struggling with visibility. So I think it's a perfect solution to address this problem. Thank you so much once again, and wish you a wonderful rest of the day.
You all, and thank you, Rina.